Culture is the worst behavior that leadership will put up with. One of the things that the brain does is it scans for threats all the time. It's like a fire detector. It's constantly scanning for threats. And what happens is, as soon as it senses something that's not quite right, so a human, you might hear, see, smell, and it comes from when we were in the trees as apes, right? We smell a fire, we know we've got to run. Same sort of thing happens in business because your brain can't tell the difference between that kind of a threat or somebody actually talking to you in a way that you don't like. If you as a leader can actually open that space to do that, you'll find that first of all, a lot of people will start coming to you, they'll start listening to you, and they'll start trusting you.
Welcome to the Martian Logic Podcast. This episode features Lauren Ryder, CEO of Leading Edge Global.
So, Lauren, thanks for being here. You said one of the topics you're passionate about is how to get the most out of people, or how do leaders / managers, I'll let you elaborate the difference between those two, but how does a company, in a sense, eventually get the most out of people? Please talk to me about that.
Leaders are often put into situations where they are absolutely not prepared for that role. I find a lot of leaders get promoted sort of when they're not particularly ready, or the organization hasn't put them through some sort of a training. Now, the thing about leaders is that when they get into a position and they don't know how to lead, often what they do is get into a tight management or a micromanagement situation where it gets to the point where people don't really want to work for them and they push their heels in. And these new leaders go, why aren't these people working for me? What is the problem?
I've been there before. I've made those mistakes.
Yeah, it's so common.
It took me a while to realize it. Yeah,
it happens all the time. The way I like to look at it is from a neuroscience perspective. So we actually look to the brain as to how people behave, how their brain works. And when we can use that and harness it, we can actually use it to lead people better. So I'll give you an example.
Yep.
One of the things that the brain does is it scans for threats all the time. It's like a fire detector.
Sure.
It's constantly scanning for threats. Yep. And what happens is, as soon as it senses something that's not quite right, so a human, you might hear, see, smell, and it comes from when we were in the trees as apes, right? We smell a fire, we know we've got to run. Same sort of thing happens in business because your brain can't tell the difference between that kind of a threat or somebody actually talking to you in a way that you don't like. And so what happens is, if you are leading someone and you say to somebody something that they don't like, whatever it is, and you might think it's completely honest, like you go, this isn't a problem, and they suddenly take offense, they have a whole red flag situation. I can't believe they said that word. Well, they are going to dig their heels in and they're not going to listen to you. And this is the challenge. So if a leader can understand that the way to let people actually feel comfortable, feel safe, and create this space of psychological safety, which we hear a lot about, if we can actually understand how that will actually make people feel calm, confident, happy to speak up, safe to say, I don't actually like that, I don't understand it, I don't know why this is happening. If you as a leader can actually open that space to do that, you'll find that first of all, a lot of people will start coming to you, they'll start listening to you, and they'll start trusting you. Yeah. So so one aspect of neuroscience that starts to help leaders.
That's awesome. How does that 100% agree with you, 100% agree with you. Now, how does that lead, just to make it clear, how does that translate to performance? Because the question was, how do we get the most out of people? Clearly, we want that win-win. We want synergy. We want to get the most out of that person in terms of return on investment for the shareholders, for the company, but we want that person to be happy, to earn the kind of money they want to earn, to learn and grow, all of that sort of synergy. So what you just said, how does that translate to getting the most out of people?
So I think that there's two sides to this. The first one is organizational. I think we'll get to that a little bit later in the conversation. But if we're just talking about the individual for now, I have found in my experience the best way to do that is through strengths-based. So there was an organization that has put together over the years a survey. It's hundreds and hundreds, if not millions of people have actually taken this. It's called the VIA Strengths Finder. And now Gallup has actually purchased it. It was called VIA, Strengths Finder. In fact, I still think it's on their website, but Gallup
I'm not seeing a Strength Finder, VIA. What's VIA?
So basically they have defined a number of strengths. I think there's from memory, about 26 of them.
Sure.
And everybody has these strengths in them somewhere. And so you take this quiz, you take it online, and you get given your top 5 strengths. Now, this has been scientifically proven. I know a lot of people love their DISC and they love their, Myers-Briggs, but none of that is grounded in science. This is actually grounded in science with many, many years behind it. And what it says is, I have my top 5 strengths that I work with. So maybe, I actually leverage humor quite a bit. That's always in my top 1 or 2. One of them is about beauty of nature, appreciation of beauty of nature. I mean, things that you wouldn't expect that are related to work. But these are strengths that might come up in yours. And what we find is that people will lean on, in hard times, their top 5.
Sure.
And they'll stray away from their bottom. And so what, as leaders, we should understand is that if somebody has these strengths and these desires and the things that they like to do, this is where we should put our people, right? Because there's different ways to complete a task. And so if you have somebody in a role, they're not A, leveraging their strengths, or B, doing something that they get excited about showing up to work every morning. Of course, you're not going to get the best out of them. So if we can understand where people are coming from, with science, we can actually measure.
Are you saying we could hire someone in sales and we realise that they have strengths where they could be adding a lot more value in marketing or in, I don't know, it could be something completely different. You're saying move people around if you want to get the most out of them into areas that aligns between the role requirements and their strengths?
Absolutely. So I'm sure you've seen it in the past. A lot of people see that there's somebody who you hire them, their CV looks great, their references were great, and they come in and they're like a fish out of water. And you're going, wait, hang on, this person was supposed to be amazing.
Happened so many times.
Or the other one
it blows me away. What is this guy doing in this role? Are you sure you applied for this role?
Well, and the same thing happens when you might be in it for 6 to 9 months and then suddenly, wait, hang on, what happened? The performance has dropped off a cliff. And it might be that something in their private life changed or their interest changed or, whatever. It could be anything. So if we work with our people, we've already instilled all that IP. We have invested highly in our people. Rather than saying, they're no longer a fit, check in with them, figure out where they are, and see if there's another part of the organization that they might belong to better.
So can I use the word you're realigning those strengths with the role's requirements? Can I say that?
That's exactly right. Or maybe you need to shift the way that the role is being delivered. If they're in the perfect role still, but we need to shift how we do work.
Slightly different version of that role.
That's right, exactly.
Not completely out of that department.
That's right.
Slightly different role there, yeah?
Yeah, we have to be thinking more adaptably. And look, the fact is change is happening all the time.
Yeah.
And improvement is, they might have seen some sort of improvement that you're refusing to accept. Listen to them.
Lauren, thank you for sharing that. That's really, really interesting. A lot of people said to me, people older than me that I've learned from, they used to say to me, Anwar, you yourself, but even people that you're managing, you'll find yourself when things get tough, the S word hits the fan, you'll find yourself going back to your safe zone, the things that you're good at. Is that sort of what you're referring to?
That's exactly right. So you will lean on your strengths in hard times, and how people react. That actually is part of what we talk about resilience. So the word resilience is thrown around a whole lot. But in this case, it's when times get tough, it's that you can stand still sturdy and not end up in a puddle in the corner, that you can actually continue to lead your team, your organization when things are hard. And what we do in those situations then is lean on those strengths. If we say, in those times that are really hard, what are my strengths? And I've said I've gone back to humor as one of mine. I'll crack a joke and, break that ice and make it a lot less bad, right? So you'll lean on that.
Beautiful. This is such a cool topic. I want to, if you don't mind, keep talking about it for a while. So I had someone here on the podcast, an HR leader that I have the great respect for, a client of ours as well. She talked about her passion was because there was a project run she was driving. She was the head of people and culture. She was driving her organization, maybe 300 people organization. She was talking about going from good to excellent or something, good to excellent, yeah. So meaning mediocre, good enough, getting the job done. You know, when he said to me, I said to you even in interviews, it wasn't that I said, oh, this guy is terrible at this, what is he doing? It wasn't the case. It's like I felt that, yes, they can do it. I can understand why they're here and clearly they've done it according to their resume, but I'm not seeing the passion.
Yeah.
That's where my angle at this.
Yes.
It is related, I guess, isn't it?
It
and
is.
I'll start to realize, and I'll go, man, you should be doing this. I even sold it sometimes. I have someone now who's one of the best leaders in the company who came to interview for something. I gave him another job. I swear to God, I can bring him in literally right now. He's one of the best leaders I've ever hired.
Look, I had this exact experience when I was younger, and I had just moved to Australia. It was about 26 years ago, and I had studied IT. I had a whole master's degree in project management of software projects, right? And I thought that is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is amazing. And I get to this consulting company. I did the interview, and they sat and interviewed me, and they look at me and they shake their head and they say, "No, you're not. You're not a project manager." They say, "You're our new salesperson." And I've gone, I didn't spend anything. It. And then they've gone, well, dollar. And I've gone, I'll give it a go. And do you know what? Even though after I finished with them, I spent a good 4 years learning the whole trade of sales, I did go back into project management and then change management. However, I have now continued to use that sales skill for the rest of my life. So they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And I think it really is important for us, if we've been around there, and as you did it yourself, you see a CV, you interview someone, and I think you need to be brave and say, you're not the right person, but this is what it is.
And I was surprised the candidates every single time. I say, okay, because you ask the question, they keep answering it based on what they've done, what the world perceives them to be qualified for, and go, no, park that for a moment. What is it that you want to do? Where is your passion? And then you're surprised. Oh, how come they're asking me that question? And when you get to the bottom of it, you start to see, is there real alignment or not? And you start to see, oh my God, when they talk about their passion, man, you could be amazing here. And what you've done is a great background for it, but certainly shouldn't be, you're never going to shine here.
And that's why when I interview people, I always start with the question, I've had a look at your CV, great, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, right.
And what they say next tells me everything. Right, how they approach it, how they speak about, whether they use a storytelling technique, whether they talk about not just professional, whether they weave in any personal, whether they talk about what they enjoyed doing versus what they didn't, and you can listen for those sorts of words to see what that passion is. I find a lot of interviews are quite standard, straight to the book, and that's not how you find people and who they are and where they're really going to be best suited, and also if they're going to be a culture fit for you.
Got it. So to go back to the question, that was amazing. Thank you, Lauren. But to go back to the question, how do we get the most out of people? That's one of these layers of the onion, I guess, that you just discussed. You're saying, well, first we've got to make sure their passion and their, what do you call those, strengths?
Yes, strengths.
Aligned with the role.
Yes,
can I summarize it that way?
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Well, okay. What else?
We need to
let's say we've done that.
Yeah, we need to make sure their role and their environment and the team is all set up for success. So this is where I said there's some on the personal side of things, but then there's also the organizational and the structure side of things. And so I think a lot of organizations, particularly ones that start to grow, maybe put this a little bit in the too hard basket, or it's kind of, it can feel a bit challenging to have to map out your entire operational model and how every team and every person is going to work together, and how everybody integrates into the whole value chain of the whole business. That can be a challenging role, but that's actually the most important thing, because if somebody can see themselves and understand exactly how they provide value for the organization, then they can actually do their job and feel part of something.
Okay, so summarize that for me. What would that be if that was a paragraph or a page? What's the heading of that?
People need to understand where they fit into the value chain of their organization.
Gosh, that's so powerful. the purpose of this role. What is this role? You're a BDM. Okay. What does a BDM mean for Martial Logic? Why your success is so important to the organization? What does it connect with? Talk to me about that. Well, what example would you use if you're explaining that to a leader somewhere out there?
Everything that we do in a business needs to be part of what we call this value chain. So it will be all the way from understanding what the market needs. So we'll have some sort of, say, a market analysis role, maybe some marketing, some product development. We'll then have sales. We'll then have operations, delivery, whatever it is that we actually do, and then client customer success or support.
Sure.
If we're, first of all, doing anything outside of that, it's superfluous and we really shouldn't be doing it.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the areas that a lot of organizations get scared of, that, we have to restructure and get rid of people. Well, if it's not absolutely driving value, meaning getting to our top line or saving on our bottom line, it doesn't deserve to be there as a role. Now, once we have that and we know what those roles are, we need to map every single one of those into that. So if we talk about maybe operations, right? When we say, well, do we need a quality assurance piece? Well, what happens if down the track we don't do quality assurance? Well, suddenly we have customer complaints, and then suddenly it comes back into the whole cycle, and then they're not going to buy again. Okay, so we have to realize what the roles are. So if we can tell people this is how you fit in and this is why your role is so important, people will feel like they're part of something bigger.
Do you say the value chain, where they sit in the value chain?
That's right.
Brilliant. Okay. Third points, there's 2 so far.
Yep. And the final piece is around culture. When we talk about culture, and I have quite a different definition of culture than probably most people.
Let's hear it.
Culture is the worst behavior that leadership will put up with. What does that mean? We often will see really poor behavior in organizations. Everyone has seen it. There's infighting. There's people blaming other people.
Sure.
There's all sorts of terrible behaviors. There's people who just don't show up, or all sorts of behaviors that we're not looking to see. If leadership is willing to put up with that and everyone else can see it, that is your new culture.
Or the leader behaves in a certain way.
Well, that's the other half.
I'm guilty of behaving in certain ways on a number of occasions. I lost my cool. I, was too tough in terms of holding people accountable about their role or responsibilities. So that would be equally as damaging and bad, no?
Look, it can be. And I think, we have expected behaviors. And I suppose, if we take a step back on how we actually understand what culture is, because I think if we're going to be looking at culture, we have to understand why we even have this culture, where does it come from, and then how do we actually shape it and how do we deliver to it?
Yeah.
And I think probably if we start with why is culture so important? So people go to work and they spend more time at work than they do with their partners, with their children, with anyone else in their life. And so my view is have people enjoy being at work. It's funny, I had a chat with someone the other day.
So powerful to see it from this prism, from this angle.
Yeah. So, I had a chat with someone the other day and she said, I said, what are you looking for in a role? She says, I just want a good vibe.
Yeah.
And I said, she says, I don't really care what the role is, because she had been in a company where the vibe was quite off. And you get it, you understand it, you feel it. Everyone has worked in a company like this. And so the why is, if we want people to enjoy coming to work, feel like they have a purpose, that they show up and they go, I'm actually giving something back, whether it's doing something I personally love, or let's just say the company does things that are really great for the world, for the environment, for the community. Yep. They have something that they can give. So people want to have a purpose and they want to feel that they can be themselves. Again, heading back to that psychological safety space. That's what we need to create.
You know what? I don't want to disrupt your flow. Thank you very much. That's an awesome point. I'll give you the microphone straight back. You know what? Funnily enough, the last webinar that we did was about the AI impact on HR role. And we had about 145 people turning up. And one of the people on the panel was Professor Carroll from University of South Australia. You know what? According to her, the top 2 priorities for employees in a role, she said the first one is to learn and grow, which I agreed with that. Second one completely surprised me, and I learned a lot from it. Building meaningful social relationships.
Yeah.
I was silent for 10 seconds, processing what that means. It is so true, so right. I've been thinking about it since almost probably an hour a day.
Yeah.
And it's so true.
We crave human connection. And as I said, you're at your office more time, or even if you're working from home, your connection is your colleagues. And so you have to be of
colleagues, clients, partners, the
of
whole
it.
ecosystem of the people that you deal with within your job, yeah?
That's right. And, as the thing that we want to align on is our values, because those are things that we connect with. So you might have quite a diverse friendship group, right? But one thing that I would probably guess is that you all have similar values. You might look different, sound different, be from different places.
Sure.
This is the same sort of thing in an organization.
Okay.
And so we draw our culture from our values, from our organizational values. And these are the behaviors that we have. And this is why people create those meaningful relationships.
Whoa. Are you saying something I've never thought about? If you have the values in an organization defined well and you're hiring against that, it's a lot more likely you'll find a friend in that community than outside.
This is something that we teach organizations about. It's called values-based hiring, and that is exactly what it is. What we train on is to say, when you are asking questions of the person on that interview, you ask them behavior questions around those values. You don't need to explicitly say, right, that if let's just say our value is collaboration.
Sure.
Right? So if you can ask a question like, how do you work with other people? Give me some examples of a time when you worked with a team or worked with another person, or a project didn't work because you didn't work with someone else. Make sure that it's story-based and they can talk about it. This is how you understand if their values are the same as yours. If they come back and say, listen, no, I work from home, I do all of my jobs, and then I hand them in, and you go, great, maybe not the best fit.
I wouldn't say great, but you're being very kind. But definitely, see, that's very, very interesting. Okay, so we've covered the strengths to be able to align that person's personalities, in a sense, strengths with the job description, in a sense. The second one was about the value chain, to make it clear, explain it to them so they can fully understand where they sit in the value chain, the impact that their role has on that value chain. Yeah. The second one was the culture and what you decided, because it's such a big, broad topic, the angle you decided to be here. How would you summarize it? Summarize for me the angle you took with the culture as a key thing that you would like to
Culture in an organization is built on the organizational's values, because values will help drive what our expected behaviors are going to be. Yeah. And if we follow our expected behaviors, we should be able to define what our culture is.
Got it. We have never taken the time to define any of that, like the company's objectives, you said purpose, what else did we discuss?
So what we do when we come into organizations is the first thing that we always look for is we ask, what is your vision, mission, and values? Some companies call it purpose, vision, values, what have you. There's different names, but the essence of this is that we have to understand who we are as a company, what we're trying to achieve, and what are the things that we need to do, our behaviors that are going to get there, right? So
that are going to get us there, or the things that we allowed and not allowed to do on the way there? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, I think so. If you think about it as almost the guardrails, right?
Sure.
I'll give you an example. Let's just say we have an investment bank and we have a not-for-profit. We have very different visions and missions of how we want to do it, but our values are probably also going to be quite different.
Sure.
Right? So, our investment bank is all around making money, and it might be around getting the best deal, and it might be about, whatever the things are that they need to get. And it might be customer service. That might be something that is important to them. But if we look at, say, not-for-profit, they might be more interested in care for their community, care for their customers. They might be more worried about collaboration. Whatever their values are. I wish
you and me one day spend an entire podcast on this point, because I have a feeling, it's just a gut feeling. Don't try it at home. You would probably know better answer, the real answer to it from your own experiences. It's not a topic expertise of mine. I have a feeling whether it's non-for-profit or commercial, it comes back to the same thing. I have a feeling the long-term play or benefits for, let's say, if you go to the bottom of this, the shareholder value, right? The absolute bottom line. For example, I've interviewed here the head of people and culture of a non-profit organization. They raise money. The sole purpose of the organization is to raise the most money they could for the two particular children's hospitals in Sydney, in the eastern suburbs. Randwick Children's Hospital and another sort of smaller hospital. And so they manage their sales team as sharply as we manage ours.
Yes.
They have targets to hit.
Yes.
They have all of the above. They give them all the tools, the CRMs, etc. It's phenomenal. That's why they went and hired someone like her who comes from a corporate world. So I think to be kind is a long-term play. I think to be kind will help you more business. I really feel all of them will align. Your purpose can be to build the best HR software in the world, but at the same time, because it's going to come from real value of removing the admin from HR folks so the HR folks can be more strategic, so they can enjoy their role more, it can be more fulfilling, and the company gets better return from them. Do you know what I mean? I appreciate your point very much. I'm not disagreeing with it, hardly disagreeing. I'm just saying you'd be surprised that these days, if you're smart enough, as opposed to be short-term thinker as a shareholder, at the long term, being nice, being kind, and have more meaningful purpose, it would be probably it would give you ultimately the biggest return on investment and will give you the most long-lasting, sticky product you'll ever build.
I don't disagree. In fact, I have quite a few not-for-profit customers, and the reason they hire us is to bring more commercial acumen into their organizations. Yeah. Absolutely. I think it's more about the fact of how we get there and how we behave. Yeah. And so when we talk about, collaboration, it might be a slightly different way we collaborate when we do in,
Why collaborating even in an environment of the top commercial folks in my company? We are a private company, 100% commercial. We want to be the biggest HR system in the world, starting with Australia. Why the salespeople who are arguably the most competitive, why can't we say you've got to finish across the line together in the sense where you've got help other people too, but it doesn't mean this person can be taken advantage of them.
Well, that
do you know what I mean?
I personally, my values agree with you. What I would also say is that that's your bias talking, because not every business and not every business owner feels that way. So this is what so there are companies where, for example, I bring up investment banking because, hedge funds, it's dog eat dog out there, and they will get done what they need to get done.
I'm just wondering if this is smart. It is, and that's what they tell you they're doing.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I'm challenging that. I totally agree with you. That's the notion out there. That's the acceptable understanding for the last 100 years, and people celebrate that, it's a private company, they can do what they like. I'm just really wondering if it's smart.
I 100% agree that it's not. However, it exists. I personally have spent time with managing director of one of the really big investment banks, investment fund, and he was telling me, I tell my guys, don't talk about this and don't talk about that. And he was telling me how he speaks to the people who work for him. And I just looked at him, I said, you get more bees with honey. I said, if you're actually nice and kind to them and actually lead them in a nicer way, and I gave him some examples, I said, you'll find that you're actually going to get them to want to do work for you. Yeah. He stopped. No one had ever told him that. And so I agree with you. We all should be kind and look for a win-win, and we all, but those are our personal values which align. Not everyone and not every company is actually like that.
Okay. No, of course. No, we agree on that. I'm just arguing if that's smart. Yeah, that's all.
Definitely not smart, no.
Cool. Okay, very good. Amazing. Do you want to add any more point under the question of how do we get the most out of people? We've covered 3 so far.
I think that's good.
That's good enough? Awesome. Why don't we talk about the some of the points that we raised over the coffee that we've had pertaining to culture, pertaining how you would, as a consultant, that you said when I asked you a question, what are you passionate the most about as a consultant to organization, your firm, yourself, you said to me, the topic of culture. I would love to work with companies around 1,000 employees, work with around those sort of 50 or so leaders in that organization and speak with them about culture and how they can change that culture to better. But the other topic that you said equally you're passionate about, it would be the change element of it, how you make them more adapt and more comfortable with change. For example, now with the AI, we're all understand that threat. If you're not comfortable enough and smart about how to deal with that change as a leader, that could be detrimental to the company. So let's talk about either of these points in any order that you choose.
Yeah, well, since we've been talking about the culture, I suppose just to expand a little bit on that. So when I talk about, we will help companies, they will come to us and say, we'd like you to come in, we'd like you to upskill our leaders, add some capability. And my first question is, well, what's the problem? What's gone wrong? Yep. Why have you actually called me in the first place? Because obviously not everything is perfect. And so what we do is we actually map out where those challenge areas are. And it might be that, we're not being as productive, or it might be that, we've now across a lot of different countries and not everyone is working with each other well, or, we have a lot of new leaders and they haven't been supported. Look, it could be a whole myriad of reasons, but we need to first figure out where that gap is. Mm. So once we figure that out, then we'll go ahead and look at, okay, what are the skills that are needed to get there? So we can list those. Now, the interesting thing is, as much as our content is all customized, the core skills, the core capabilities are always the same across every organization. People are just people. So when we start talking about leadership capability, we've talked about creating a psychologically safe space. How do we communicate? How do we communicate inclusively? How do we hire?
Communicate inclusively?
Yeah. So how do we make sure that when we communicate, that we are either, and obviously we know there's different types of communication. There's verbal, there's written, there's teams, there's all sorts of different ways. And how do we know that our people, everyone that we are communicating with, is hearing the message in a way that is resonating with them?
Ooh, could be a different version of that.
Absolutely. And we add a whole nother level where we start throwing in neurodiversity. So about 20 to 25% of the workforce is neurodiverse.
Sure.
And so, we know that there might need to be some different working conditions that might suit them better, but also they communicate differently. So some people...
I never thought about it that way.
They understand, they hear things differently, and they also will communicate to you differently. So someone might be incredibly direct, and you might go, that was a lot. But if you understand where their brain is, then you say, okay, actually, that wasn't them being rude. That's just the way their brain works. Yep. But conversely, that person might need, you might say to them, hey, can you just build me a new landing page for this product? And one of your staff might just go, I got this, right? Whereas somebody who maybe is neurodiverse might go, I need you to give me step by step by step, make this black and white, right? Tell me everything I need to do, and they'll do it. And it'll be great.
Lauren, I got it. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
You've made it really clear. That is amazing. I'm going to really think about this next time I'm communicating with the whole company. I'm going to definitely reconsider that. Does that need to be broken up, slightly different, 2 groups maybe, etc.? Thank you for sharing.
The other thing I think that a lot of leaders miss is around reward and recognition. And sometimes, companies will do a once a year and they'll do a gala and they do awards or, even just quarterly. The challenge that we find, again, when we look at how people want to receive reward, everybody is different. So some people might just want you to take them for a one-on-one coffee. They might not want to be put up on a stage at a gala dinner and given, a piece of paper. That might not be for them. And so everybody you need to understand when you speak to your people, say, when you do a great job, how can we recognize the great work that you've done? I think it's only about 40% of people care about a financial incentive for great work, which leads into your point about people coming to work for a social connection.
Yes. I so believe in that, especially in a city like Sydney, one of the top biggest cities in the country, in the world, the New York, the Tokyo, etc., the London. My goodness, it takes you probably know the answer to this better, something along the line of 10, 15 years to make one friend or something like that. There's a great deal of isolation out there. And now that you've got certain skills and you want to move on to another company because you'll be unhappy in your life and whatever, you look forward. Could be even 30 like us, we're 35, or it could be 100 or it could be thousands. Oh my God. All these people I'm going to meet. Of course, I'm going to make friends. Of course, I'm going to find people. I'm going to find my people that think like me, etc. I can be happy. I can socialize with them. I can collaborate on even things pertaining to my job in a better way, in a more pleasant way, in a cool way. I mean, why shouldn't you think like that when you think about it? It is so powerful, isn't it, Lauren, what Professor Carroll said?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it is. It's just about human connection. So the other part, when we look at what we are supporting our leaders and building their capability, and it goes back to, again, we always come back to our values. We always anchor all of our learning around what are our values, because our values will drive what our behaviors are. So if that isn't clearly defined in your organization, so we'll give an example. If one of our values is we always seek win-win, we always want, right? So if we say we want win-win, we have to define, what does that look like? What does win-win look like? What doesn't it look like, right? And that needs to be made really clear with everyone in the organization. And that they are then measured on within their KPIs, on their behaviors. They're also measured on their outcomes, but this is about measuring their behaviors, right? And if we can understand what those behaviors are, what are expected, then we can actually find the gaps. If we say this person isn't doing X, Y, and Z, we can actually come in and target those capabilities and upskill, because sometimes people, it's not that they don't want to, sometimes they just don't know. Nobody's explained it to them in plain English. Like, we expect you to, speak clearly in meetings. We expect you to do stakeholder management and do this before meetings and prep this person. Like, sometimes people aren't told that explicitly, and that's not stuff that's taught in university, right? It's kind of things that you learn over time. Well, why don't we actually skill them in that and tell them what the great behaviors are that we expect from them?
Yeah. As a startup now moving into scale up where we are right now, we've never invested the time. I've had a couple of goes at it, but you're always busy, and especially when you're organically growing, bootstrap, as a startup, and you never had the time to define, I really want to start a project, and defining all of those, especially to honor the module we're releasing now in Martian Logic. We are always the first user of every feature. So to define those purpose and mission and value, and be able to link with the performance management tool, how you can have the goal setting and the goal management, to then link those goals into the company's purpose and missions and goals and values, as well. I really feel I want to start that project now and get all the leaders involved initially, but then also all the rest of the company too. Got about 5 leaders, but really 8, because every developer, treat them like a leader, involve them in any critical decision, the senior developers. So 8 people in total. I think I should start that process. Maybe you can help us with that as well. I'll talk to you after this.
We've done it for a company exactly your size. exactly startup to scale up, and they were getting acquired by an international company. So they needed to have their own real kind of how they were going to work within this other company. They were going to still operate independently. So they really needed to have that. What was really, what's important, I think that people don't necessarily realize that when we talk about this vision, mission, values, and then the culture aspect, is that it's not just about us internally inside of our business. It actually is how we face out to the world, but also how we bring in new hires. So you're saying scale up. Well, you're going to be hiring.
Yep.
So I'll give you an example. When we ran this for this company of your size, we had exactly that. They had gone from, they kind of had some, they were probably about 5-6 years old. It had been the founder, and they just didn't resonate anymore. And it was the perfect time to do it. So they brought all the leaders in, and we ran the workshop over 2 sessions. They took all the output of that session and they weaved it into every single piece of what they did. So they put that through their website. They started interviewing their employees just with a little video camera. And what do you love working about? What do you love about working here? And tell me about what this insert value here. What does this mean to you? And what they found was that when they were hiring, when they were recruiting, people were so excited to come in and talk about the business because they knew what this company was about. They didn't realize that this was actually impeding their recruitment before, because suddenly when they saw the absolute flip, they're going, oh my God, why didn't we do this earlier? Yeah. People wanted to be part of it because they believed in their purpose and what they were doing. So
interesting. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was so tempted to, because first time that we hired an HR person, it's not even HR, we're not even there yet, a recruitment person. We hired an amazing person, Grant. He's a senior recruiter, but if I was to guess 15 to 16 years. And he's full-time, which is a huge luxury for a company our size, And he could do with those. Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. To be able to start to make sure that job description does include those values, does include elements of that mission, or at least it connects with that, it relates to those, Yeah. And then therefore he's hiring against that. But what you said was enlightening to me. I didn't even think about that. You're saying even people come in already aware of that and they want to speak to that.
Well, that's because they go to the website, right?
Amazing.
And the first thing they see is this video, of you talking, say, this is what it's like to work here. And then you've panned to, to each of your people and saying, this is why I like doing my job. And people go, you know what? I could see myself here.
This is really powerful. You are amazing. I am learning a lot more than I expected from you. So send the invoice at the end of the session. No, I was joking.
Easy,
I was joking.
Oh, it's just in my pocket here. I was just going to hand it over.
Let's get this right. Oh, you've got the card.
Yeah, I've got it ready to go.
Where's your credit card?
You just swipe here.
That's hilarious. I wouldn't doubt you'd be doing that. I wouldn't put it past you. No. Fantastic. No, I'm very grateful. Thank you, to be honest. Okay, so we've got probably I've got a good gut feel when it comes to time. I know we've got still about 20 minutes to 30 minutes left, 20 minutes, let's say. What would be the one more thing?
I think the leading change piece. I'd love to delve into that.
Sorry, of course.
Yeah.
Goes without saying. Let's go.
Okay.
Leading change. What is this all about? We're talking, to frame it for the audience, we're still talking about you and your firm. Imagine you're consulting to 500 people organization, doesn't matter really to be honest the size, and you're speaking with the leadership team, 20, 30 people in that 500 people organization, and the CEO and the board even sometimes, and you're saying, look, to be at a certain level when it comes to dealing with change is critical to your business, and here's why and here how you do it. Is that the framing?
Yeah.
Let's go.
The one thing that we all hear all the time is that change is constant in every single organization.
Yeah, but not many people process it well.
No,
it's like you hear it, but it doesn't sink in sometimes, right?
Well, there's a reason because of that, and it sits in your brain. So again, we talked about the brain constantly being on and sensing things. People really like routine. They like what they know. And as soon as something comes out of that, they absolutely freeze. And And you know, this fight, flight, or freeze.
Yeah. Anxiety,
Well, that's
part of anxiety.
That's right.
Part
And
of
so
our
when
protection
something has changed, so something might be quite sudden, or somebody has introduced a new piece of software that you really don't want to use. I mean, it could be as simple as that, but your brain can't tell the difference. You know, it could be a freight train coming at you or a new process.
It links it to a risk, yeah?
It is. And your brain doesn't like change. And so, that's the challenge of a leader, because if we assume that change is constant and our role as leaders is to continually improve and make ourselves better and make our businesses better, and suddenly we're playing against people who don't want that, well, we have to learn how to lead change. There are a full skill set around it. We in fact have a full program around leading change. And again, it's all sort of brain-based, because it has to be grounded in something where people go, yeah, I understand. So one of the theories that comes out of change sits around resistance, because this is the biggest thing that we have. And now, interestingly enough, resistance can show up in a bunch of different ways. Sometimes it's obvious. Nope, I don't like it. That's not going to work. Well, that's easy, because if somebody says that, you can go, yep, that's you. I can deal with that. I can say, why isn't going to work? We can deal with it.
Sure, fair enough. That's more factual. Yeah, you can deal with that.
That's easy. We love that. We love people who are loud about it.
Sure.
Where we have trouble is the non when they're quiet about it, right?
Ooh.
So what you can notice in, say, in a meeting, you introduce something that's going to happen, and suddenly someone goes quiet. Now that's resistance as well. We call that passive resistance, right? Okay, so if you can, so this is some of the things we teach our leaders, the things to look out for, right? Because you might not notice it, because you're standing up in front of the business really excited, and you don't realize that people are quiet. And then we've got that third level, which is even worse, which is like that white ant, where they don't say anything in the meeting, or they agree in the meeting even, and then they leave and they start talking about it amongst their peers and start turning everyone against them.
That's the white ant.
Oh, yeah. It's shocking. So how do we not get here in the first place? And this is the challenge of leaders, because if we know it's our job to lead change, and most of the changes that we're going to lead were not instigated by us. So if we think about, you've got middle management or even senior leaders, what have you, often these big changes come about by one person in a senior leadership team or the CEO. That's usually where I'm talking about the big money projects, right? So how do we get everybody on board, right? So there's lots of different skills that we teach around this. So initially, as I've just said, people don't like something unless they think it's their idea. So as much as we want to force change on people, we have to take a step back and slow down. And we have to workshop. I know everyone hates all this time that we spend in a workshop, and allow people to be heard. And this, again, remember the psychological safety concept that we keep coming back to, because it is baseline. We have to have people be able to speak up and know that you're going to do something about it, right?
That white ant would not become a white ant. You're right.
Correct.
You're
and
right.
so if we provide an open space where people can actually, when we introduce, but rather than doing it as a big town hall meeting and presenting it.
Yeah, and you feel you're ganging up against them. There's no room for you to speak against the crowd. It's too embarrassing, too much anxiety. They're not going to say anything. You lead them to force them to become the white ant. You're so right.
That's right. So we need to, so communication needs to be two-way when we're talking about this. So what it means is, and obviously there's a lot of different layers. How we communicate change is different to how we might communicate another company announcement. For example, when we communicate change, we need to really hone our storytelling skills. Mm-hmm. You need to capture hearts and minds. You need to understand as well that every audience that you present to is different.
Yeah.
Like every person is different. Every group will be different. Yeah. And therefore your messaging will need to adjust. You can't take the same presentation out. That's right. And so all of these things, you're walking a tightrope, and at any point you could just wobble. And so what we love to do is enable leaders with the skills that they need. So understanding this is what's going through the brain of somebody who's going through change. We always used to say, back in the States, I don't know if we had this ad in Australia, like, this is your brain, which is like an egg. And then it was like, this is your brain on drugs and it's on a frying pan. It was just the dare ads to keep kids off drugs. Anyway, it's like this. This is your brain, and this is your brain on change.
Yes.
And it's different. It's different when because of this whole amygdala reaction where your brain is scanning for threats all the time and they get shut down and they can't process. We have to approach it in slowly in a way that they understand and they feel like they're being listened to. So these are the sorts of skills. So we train them about this, like all the theories behind it and give them some skills. But then we support it. We know that in learning that they're going to forget 90% of what we taught them the day they walk out of that room. So we do lunch and learns. And we continue to support our leaders through, and we often will make them like live coaching sessions so people can bring their challenges and we can actually solve them together, because this is change is not easy. Change is hard for everyone, no matter how many times you've done, because people are unpredictable.
Yeah. It's been amazing. We can finish it here unless there's anything else you want to add. But I've got 10 hours of thinking to process what I've learned from you. It's been really amazing, incredibly fulfilling. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
It's an honor to meet you.
Thank you.